Hello, very good day to everyone. I'm Gaddix Games, and here we are in another Mobile Legends video, and this time we're on the advanced server. As you can see, we already have a new user interface with a new hero, which is also coming to the official server in the next season. And today I'm bringing you the latest patch, more specifically what would be the hero balancing. And we start with GLOO. The developers leave us the following message. Gloo was exceptionally tough despite his high damage, which made him frustrating to play against. His passive now has damage reduction per stack. It went from 4 to 3, a bit of a nerf this time for Gloo. Now, let's move on to Eevee. Some of the nerfs from the previous patch were reverted, meaning some of the weakening effects. For his first skill, the cooldown went from 3.5 to 2.5 seconds to 3 to 1.5 seconds. And for his ultimate, the camera zoom out effect was optimized. During the ultimate, the death notifications on the left were also expanded, without blocking the surrender button. Let's continue with Miss Novaria. Some improvements from the previous patch to her second skill were also reverted, and the damage went from 230 up to 405, plus 100% of total magic power, plus 4% of the target's maximum hit points. It changed to 230 up to 380, plus 90% of total magic power, plus 4% of the target's maximum hit points. And as for the cost, mana changed from 50 up to 90 to 60 up to 110. Well, in this case, Novaria was buffed in the previous patch, but in this patch, they nerfed her a bit again regarding some of those buffs she got in the previous patch. Now let's continue with Cyclope. Some of the nerfs from the previous patch to his second skill were reverted. The magic bonus went from 50 to 55%. In this case, it would be the other way around. He was nerfed in the previous patch, but now they've reverted the nerf a bit. Now we continue with another mage, Valir. Some of the improvements from the previous patch to his attributes were reverted. The base health points went from 2,440 to 2,380, and the health increase went from 165% to 155%. Now we have Sushin. Some buffs from the previous patch were reverted. In his second ability, the base damage when holding, that is, when you hold down the button, the ability went from 35 to 70 to 35 to 80. Now we have Saz Ciravella AB Cran AB, and his mana cost was adjusted. Well, bad news, ABM3, ABM4, M4, M4, ABM5. The mana cost went from 60 up to 90 to 80 up to 110 then. For his third ability, the mana cost went from 60 up to 120 to 60 up to 105. And for his ultimate, the cooldown went from 45 down to 35 seconds to 48 down to 40 seconds. And the mana cost went from 100 up to 200 to 120 up to 180. Well, on one hand, the mana cost has been buffed because it's going to cost you a little less, at least for the third ability and also for the ultimate, but not for the first one. But on the other hand, the cooldown time has been increased compared to the buff it had before. Next mage, we have Gord. We slightly reduced his damage after the cooldown of his first ability was reduced in the previous patch. So, on his first ability, the damage went from 270 up to 495 plus 80% of total magic power, to 225 up to 425 plus 65% of total magic power. Jin lost his range damage. Mana cost. So for his first ability, the mana cost went from 60 up to 85 to 60 up to 80. And for his ultimate, the base damage went from 1,000 up to 1,500 to 900 up to 1,400. The mana cost went from 140 up to 180 to 135 up to 165. And now we have Valentina. In her second skill, the mana cost went from 45 up to 70 to 40 up to 60. In this case, a buff for the mana cost of her second skill. Eudora, also in her first skill, the mana cost went from 70 up to 95 to 65 up to 90. Next we have Parsa. In her first skill, the mana cost went from 60 up to 90 to 65 up to 90. And in her second skill, the mana cost went from 50 up to 80 to 60 up to 85. Now it's Vexana's turn. In her first skill, the mana cost went from 80 up to 130 to 85 up to 135. And in her second skill, the mana cost went from 60 up to 90 to 60 up to 100. As for Xavier, we also have in his first skill, the mana cost went from 30 up to 55 to 45 up to 70 now for Selena. We have that in her first skill. The mana cost went from 60 up to 85 to 70 up to 95. And as for Faramis, also in his first skill, the mana cost went from 70 up to 120 to 85 up to 135. That's all for the mages. Now let's continue with Eve and Exborg. Xia's line skill was too powerful, so we reduced the base damage of her first skill at the start of the match and reduced the fish regeneration. From her passive, when hitting non-hero units with her passive, the energy per second regeneration against non-hero units. It changed from 20 plus 150% lifesteal to 10 plus 150% lifesteal. And in her first ability, the base damage changed from 75 up to 300 to 50 up to 300. Well, finally, Montoon realized that Ixia was really broken in the gold lane. I've been mentioning this in several videos, but since you don't watch all my videos and don't see when I upload, maybe some gameplay of a certain hero? Well, since last season I've been showing you that Ixia was totally broken. I mean, really broken. And now, well, Montoon finally realized it and is going to nerf her. Because this was exactly what made Ixia so broken. It was very hard to fight her in the early game because she could beat almost all the marksmen. I mean, the other marksmen had to be really good, maybe a clean player to put up a fight, but she was really overpowered, and I'm saying this even though I'm not a main marksman. And with Ixia, I was crushing it. But anyway, if they didn't take advantage of the bug, well, I think it's going to end soon. Surely when they update and the new season arrives, this nerf for Ixia will come. We continue with Ruby as a fighter. Ruby depended too much on gold. We increased her damage at the beginning and mid-game, while reducing her physical bonus to help her return to the experience lane. So, for her first skill, the damage went from 90 plus 70% up to 130% of total physical attack to 120, up to 245 plus 90% of total physical attack. Well, Buff, could you say then that with this, they want people to stop using Ruby in the gold lane? And I think that's fine, because she was a hero designed from the beginning to be used in the experience lane. Let's continue with Claudio. We increased the coefficient of the number of ultimate hits according to attack speed. Well, Buff, so could we say that for Claudio? Now let's continue with Aulus's Rebomb. His mobility was reduced, but his damage and control ability were increased. So in his passive, we have the enhanced basic attack damage. It went from 85% of total physical attack plus 3 plus 0.4 per hero level as a percentage to 85% of total physical attack plus 4 plus 0.4 per hero level as a percentage. That's the change. So in his passive and in his second skill, we see that it's removed. And what about the dash? On the second cast, it applies a 30% slow effect to targets hit for 1.2 seconds. Alright, go on. So, will these changes to Aulus's Rebomb arrive at the start of the new upcoming season? I'm not 100% sure, but I think there's a chance that this Rebomb will be released in the next season. And finally, we have Obsidia. The attack speed setup for Obsidia didn't live up to expectations. We have increased the damage of her basic attack effects while reducing her base damage to balance her out. So that's what we have in her passive. The inherited attack effect ratio went from 70% to 100% of base attack damage. And for her basic attacks, the damage points, I think, went from 80 to 70. And well, folks, that's it for this hero balancing. From the latest patch notes, there were some changes missing that have to do with the items. But I'll bring that tomorrow in another video, so leave me a comment. What did you think about this hero balancing? I'm reading your comments, and if you like the video, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.